Mythics, how are we all? Yes, it is another Saturday morning. It is 10 a.m. It's Edra Tales Twitch channel and Edra Tales YouTube channel. Yes, we have a YouTube channel. And my name is Ken Boyter, but you probably already know that. But you might not, you probably don't actually. But you knew now because I've just said it. This is Loquacious. He is from the Bottled Imp YouTube channel. If you like your fantasy, which let's face it, if you're tuning in here, you probably do. We have over 450 episodes of fantasy book reviews, fantasy film reviews and fantasy board game reviews, plus a few other little extras thrown in for good measure. Welcome. Hopefully you've all had a lovely week. We are going to be talking about game books today. There's a surprise. And also illustrations. I maybe we need to focus also on the illustrations just as much as we do on the writing. And we'll get into that as soon as people join us, because at the moment I think I'm just rambling to myself, which, you know, Loquacious, you've heard me do that on a number of occasions, but, you know, we could have a little conversation. What have you been up to recently? Oh, yeah? Yeah. How is he? Yeah? Good. There you go, we have riveting conversations being Loquacious. Loquacious is a bit mischievous, as you could probably gather. He's one of these mischievous little imps. So it looks like we have got somebody watching. Hello, greetings. If you'd like to comment, then I know who you are, because at the moment with Twitch it says the number of viewers, but it doesn't necessarily say who you are unless you comment. If you do want to comment, you can follow the channel. Now that doesn't make sense. I was told that in order to comment on any stream on Twitch, you had to follow the channel. So I was saying that for a while. I don't know if it's true or not, but then I was told no, you don't have to. But thank you for all of those 66 or 67 wonderful people, because I think one of them is me. I think I followed the channel accidentally, and then I realised, oh, you can actually follow your own channel. Bump up the numbers. So thank you for all of those that have followed. Now, as I say, we're going to be talking about game books, because I have been in the thick of it with a Kickstarter campaign, Devilish Dilemmas to Kill a Thief. Now, it is still open for late pledges. We were very successful. We raised, good morning, or good evening, it's Levin. Yes, good evening, 6 p.m. That's a nice time for you to watch. Still readjusting to time. Oh, yeah, time to daylight savings. Yes, of course. The UK last weekend went back an hour. We have something called daylight savings, where I think traditionally it's to do with farmers, so they could have an extra hour, you know, tending the cattle, tending the sheep and the barley and the wheat, plus also I think it was tying in with the fact that you know, in the Victorian times, as schools were becoming more and more prevalent in the UK, because before that you didn't have to send your kid to school, then it's to do with school children being able to still walk home in the light rather than, obviously, it would be dark, so they sort of put the clocks back so you go home in the light, which is lovely, which is a lovely thought. So yes, we have just done a Kickstarter, and it is still open for late pledges. We have raised £2,146, which is fantastic. 52 backers, which I'm massively happy about, because, you know, I'm pretty much unknown author. So to get anybody backing your book is just amazing. That somebody's looked at what you've shown them and said, yeah, actually, I'd like a bit of that. Obviously, there are going to be, you know, friends and family that might just support you because you're friends and family, and that's fair enough. And that is most grateful for people that do that, obviously. But I guess as a creative, you do want to extend past that. You do want to, you know, reach people that don't know you, that don't feel obliged, you know, like friends and family, to support you. They're doing it because they actually believe in the product. Not that your friends and family don't believe in the product. I'm really digging a hole here. But I think you know what I'm trying to say here. As the seasons turn, so doth the sun slumber with more haste. Lovely, beautiful sentence. Is that Shakespeare or was that a Lerin? Is that a Lerinism? You've always got a lovely turn of phrase, Lerin. I really like that. And I'm assuming that is your second language as well, which is very impressive. It's like Martha. Martha's got very impressive second language here. It's a Lerin. Well, that is beautiful. Maybe you should write poetry, Lerin. Write some poetry. I wonder... I was just about to say, I wonder if anyone's written fantasy poetry. But I have. I wrote my Legends of Grimace Ironblood, which is 12,000 word saga in poetry. So there we go. So it can be done. It can be done. In fact, I was asked to write a poem that was translated from Polish, and it was a little story for kids that basically it's about two people that one lives above the other, and one's really quiet and likes, you know, reading and quietness, and the other's really loud and bombastic. And the lady that asked me to translate it, her English was fine, but she felt it wasn't brilliant, you know. So she asked me if I would, you know, so she gave me like her translated version of the story, and then I expanded on it and added, you know, bits and pieces to it. And it was a poem, and I found it fun to do. And then I thought, oh, you know, I'd like to write more folk tales, fairy tales, fantasy like this, you know, because that wasn't the brief. The brief was it was, you know, modern day, contemporary, you know. So that's where the Legends of Grimace Ironblood came from. I thought, actually, I can do this. I can actually sit down and do this. Because at the time, this was probably about 10 years ago now, I didn't know if I could write a novel. You know, sit down and write a novel seemed quite daunting. So, yeah, I kind of did that, and I really enjoyed it. So, anyway, we're going to talk about game books, Lirin. It looks like you're the only viewer. Which, you know, is lovely. It is lovely, obviously. But normally, you know, where's Jonathan? Oh, Martha, I know Martha. Martha's out, actually. Martha has gone to, I think it's a book fair or something like that. And she said she's going to be buying a Lord of the Rings book. And I can't remember what it was for. I can't remember, but it was a special kind of book. So, yeah, so that I know where Martha is. I think I know where Sally is. Jonathan, where are you, Jonathan? Then who else normally tunes in? Jam tunes in. Dylan sometimes tunes in. They've all abandoned us, Lurin. The most surprising item I found by the Thames was Back to Thy Future at the Globe Theatre. That sounds amazing, which is an Elizabeth retelling of Back to the Future. Did you see that then? Because that sounds amazing, doesn't it? It's one of those really interesting things, because I personally wouldn't write that. I personally don't want to riff off something else. You know, I want to be original and write my own stuff. However, I know stuff like that is incredibly popular. So, you know, as a writer, is it tempting to go down that route to make your name, you know, to earn money from writing? I was seeing Hamlet, except the genders of the young cast flipped. Oh, there you go. Yeah. Well, in Hamlet, in Shakespeare's time, I'm pretty sure it was illegal for women to be on the stage. Imagine that. It's crazy. So a lot of young boys played women. So it's not unusual to gender swap, certainly within Elizabethan plays. That, you know, that is kind of part of it. And then Shakespeare kind of purposely wrote that into his plays, where, you know, you'd have women disguised as men, men disguised as women, or boys disguised as men, and blah, blah, blah. Boys disguised as men. Just stand on each other's shoulders with a long coat and a moustache, fake moustache. Hello there, one for the cinema, please. So, yeah, it's not unusual for that to happen in Shakespeare, absolutely. Yeah. So, well, I was hoping that we'd have more of an audience, but hey, that's finally in. So let's crack in. So, basically, I did find this book, by the way, look. Catherine Merchant, House of Men. House of Men. That is fantastic. Right, yeah. Game book illustrations. A lot of people, if they're into game books, certainly the fighting fantasy, part of the experience is the illustrations. The young woman who played Hamlet that night was surprisingly powerful in convening genuinely tear-jerking rage and grief. It was 2019, I vividly remember her performance. Yeah, absolutely. Well, when you think about it, yes, there are differences between men and women. Of course there are. But there are many similarities. And those similarities are emotions, aren't they? We all feel jealousy, we all feel rage, we all feel happy, we can all feel sad, we all can feel empathy. You know, you list the emotions, both genders can feel it. So when I was training to be an actor, we would look at the emotion behind the words. So if you learn the emotion behind the words and you know your words, you learn your lines, that's kind of how you remember it, because it's sort of symbiotic, where you would learn an emotion next to the words you're saying. So obviously that's not necessarily gender connected, is it? That is to do with just being human and having that playing the emotion, and therefore, therefore you judge the actor or the believability of the actor on how well they're conveying that emotion. So that's why that kind of stuff works. There was what was it? Was it Prospero's book? There was a film that we reviewed on the Bottled Imp. I think it was Prospero's book, where Prospero was played by Helen Mirren, and yeah, that worked equally as well. So yeah, absolutely. We have so illustrations in game books. I remember obviously playing the fighting fantasy game books. We have Forest of Doom. I mean, look at that illustration. So within the fighting fantasy range, and game books, there's three types of illustration. We've got the cover illustration, which this one is very iconic, isn't it? The Forest of Doom. That is just brilliant. And then we have these types of illustrations, the filler illustrations. And this one is actually by Malcolm Barter, which is currently going to be illustrating Jam's book, which is very exciting. I don't want to spoil too much, but yeah. So these just simple line drawings. These aren't as detailed as the ones in some of them, but these just are brilliant. They're just so simple. And I guess, you might have time constraints as well, because I'm sure the artist would have liked to have done more, because all of this detail could have been done, couldn't it? But it's not a criticism, because I absolutely adored these. So you've got the cover, you've got the little filler illustrations, like the sword here. Oh yeah, look. Is there any other? I think it's just a sword on this one. This is book 3. They're still developing the style and developing what the whole game book fantasy genre is about. Then we got, lovely illustrations like this, which is just gorgeous. What else have we got? Which other? Oh, I've got Citadel of Chaos here. Citadel of Chaos. Let's have a look at that. See, weirdly enough, I'm not a massive fan of that cover. I would much prefer the face to be bigger, I think. The iconic scrolls and piles of treasure. Yeah, absolutely. They're the ones. Yeah, look, there you go. So this is book 2. There, look, the scroll. And, piles of treasure. And look at that, look. Little potions. They're all lovely touches. They really are. And it visually, the language is simple because, as I say, you've got the cover illustration, which I'm not sure I like that blue colour either, but that's gorgeous. So I think that looks like Ian Miller. Yeah, Ian Miller's stuff is amazing. Ian Miller's beautiful. He's one of my favourite ones. And then obviously you knew the interior artwork was going to be an entry scene, obviously. But then you'd sort of go, what's this scroll? Does this scroll mean anything? It's not explained. You know it's just a filler. You know it's a filler. You know, it's not like, oh, you found a scroll, great, I'll pick it up. So it was done beautifully. Look at that. That's brilliant. That's brilliant. More incentives to survive to 400. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, look, you know, and also what I liked about them as well is that not every single illustration was like a dragon, you know, it was all very exciting. Look at that. That is literally a room. There's no one in there. It's just a room. At first sight, the strange smell, mixture of sweet, spicy, stable foods, take you by surprise. And look. That is it. So again, I think that's a very bold move, just to put, you know, in a kid's book as well. Whereas, and then you can compare it to this one, which is, you know, more interesting if you really want to say it. But that's got more intrigue about it. You know, there's who's that figure? He's a mysterious figure. What is? Oh, look at all the candles. You know, you can tell about the lighting. Poking your head round the door, you can see rows and rows of rocks full of bottles. Racks full of bottles. You know, so it's like, it's not even mentioning the figure in the middle. Yeah, and then you've got this one. Suddenly a ghostly white, luminous face flies towards you. And that is very brave, where you've just got ink. So, you know, I just remember these. Talisman of Death. I haven't played Talisman of Death, so maybe we need to play Talisman of Death. I don't want to spoil this too much for myself. But yeah, look. Very intriguing. Whoever does the interior illustrations here. Do they actually say who does the interior illustrations? Yeah, so this is Bob Harvey. Oh, look. So this, yeah. This wasn't actually, yeah, this was book 11. So this was written by Jamie Thompson and Mark Smith. The concept was Steve Jackson and Ian Livingstone. Yeah, illustration copyright Bob Harvey. So Bob Harvey did all these interior illustrations. Wow, these are really good, aren't they? Look at these. They're great. Who does the interior illustrations on the Citadel of Chaos? Yeah, look at that. Look at that. It's great. We have... Oh, these Russ Nicholson. Russ Nicholson. So, yeah, two of my favourite ones. Russ Nicholson and Ian Miller. Yeah, I mean, look at this. Look at the detail on that. But as Alien shows, the less monster appears as scary as when it jump out. Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. And again, you know, I'm going to be doing my illustrations for my book, and I'm going to be looking at loads of illustrations just to refresh my memory of what I really liked about those illustrations and what I think is a powerful illustrations. Who would have thought that Gaiac's fearsome two-headed lizard men would have been scared of a mere mouse? Exactly. And interestingly enough, yeah, so then we've got a more later fighting fantasy, Shadows of the Giants. And again, look at these. It's, yeah, look at the detail on that. These are little filler ones. Look at the swords. So that's fantastic. Who does the illustrations on here then? So we have cover illustrations by Mike McCarthy, which does look just amazing. And then we have, yeah, these are really nice illustrations. Look, and then you got the classic map. So my game book is going to have, To Kill a Thief is going to have the classic map as well. Got to have a map. Everyone loves a map. So the map illustration was by Ryan McGee. Cover and inside illustrations by Mike McCarthy. And yeah, it's interesting. The behind the scenes. So Mike McCarthy also did the cover. So he did the cover illustration and the interior ones as well. So look, the filler ones are really beautiful. They're really nice, aren't they? And also, yeah, look at these. They're really good. They're really good. I don't want to give too many spoilers away if you've not read this book, but yeah, very dramatic posing. You know, very detailed. We have a second co-pilot. Yes, we do. Hello, greetings for the other viewer. We normally have more people watching, but yeah. But welcome. You're more than welcome to join. If you want to comment so we know who you are, that's fantastic, because otherwise we won't know who you are. But again, equally, you can just sit and watch. Look at this. Look at this. Look at those. So they're brilliant. They're really, really good. So that, to me, sums up, you know, fighting fantasy. That's the memories I have of the illustrations. So this is book 21. I've not played the Trial of Champions. Is this a Death? Yeah, it's just Death That Dungeon Returns, isn't it? And you know, they knew that these would work because of the stock quality of paper. This is a paperback, so it's, you know, slightly off. It's not pure white. So you need simple line art to work on this type of paper. And when I say simple, I mean that obviously isn't simple. Only me, it's Jonathan. Hello, sir. Well, we've been talking about the illustrations in game books, because I need to also focus not only on the writing of To Kill a Thief, but also on the illustrations. And it, you know, so I'm sort of now gearing myself up to crack on and work on the game book. So I'm just looking, you know, just picked out some fighting fantasy books just to say, look, this was probably 50% of my experience when I played game books, was looking at the illustrations, and not only the, you know, the main illustrations, but also the filler illustrations. You know, it's just really cool filler illustrations. So let's see who did the cover. So the cover was Brian Williams. The cover's Brian Williams. So that's a bit of an iconic cover. And nice world building there. Orcs and trolls have clearly become so normal in cities of thieves. They're not even street urchins are afraid of them anymore. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, that was in this one, wasn't it? And who did the interior? Illustrated by Brian Williams. Did he do all of it then? Yeah, he did the cover. So sometimes the cover illustrator did do the interior artwork as well. I've not really looked too closely about who done all of the interior illustrations. But, you know, I'm going to be looking very, very closely at the illustrations in game books, because obviously, you know, I want to really up my game and give, you know, and do some fantastic drawings. I mean, look at that, just as the little filler illustration there. That's great. Jonathan's put here, the troll guards in Port Blacksand are interesting. When I encountered them in City of Thieves, I thought they were basically the same size as humans. However, on the cover of Blacksand, they the size of ogres, but in Russ Nicholson's Intelligence, they are the size of dwarves. Yeah. See, that's the thing. As a fan, as somebody who starts reading them, hello, I think we've got someone else. Welcome. We're talking about the illustrations in game books, basically. And that, for me, was part of the love of falling in love with the Fighting Fantasy series. I was just enamoured by them. But also, I can totally understand why the size of creatures and things like that can alter. Because if you've got a Fighting Fantasy series like this, you've got multiple authors. Eventually, you know, they took... Jonathan knows. Jonathan is one of the authors. You've got multiple authors. You've also got multiple artists. And then you've also got, presumably, multiple editors. I don't know. So, to keep track of the lore and keep track of... You know, in one book you've said a troll is 6 foot, but in another book you've said a troll is 4'8". You know, I totally get that, and you probably get that as well with your books, Jonathan. Although yours are more standalone, aren't they? So I find that with the world I'm creating, so this book, To Kill a Thief, is created in my magical world of Edra, then I started to do that. I started to lose track and go, hang on, I've said that a chlorocan is, that high, and an imp is that high, and a sprite is that high. So I've seen those images where, for D&D, where they've got all the heights of each race, and I thought, yeah, maybe I need to start doing that for my world, just so I can get a consistency going. Because I've written over 25, I think it was, short stories that I really started to expand on the world. And so I do need to put a wiki page up onto my website that just, actually like a database of my world, because then you can go in and look at it. And also it's a good, so fans can look at it, but also it's a good reference point for me, because, in one book, if I bring back another character, if I bring back the same character, and in one book I've said she's got blonde hair, and in another book I said she's got black hair, then obviously these things, that's where your world gets broken, and you don't want it broken. I loved commissioning classic FF artists, Russ Nicholson, Tony Hugh, to illustrate my books. But I also like commissioning artists who don't normally illustrate books. Neil Goog, is that how you pronounce his name? Yeah, I can imagine it's such a thrill to be in a position where you're going, I loved your illustrations as a kid. Can you do some for my book? That must be such a thrill. And equally, just commissioning anyone to do anything creative, because it's so undervalued that to actually then commission anyone. So even if they're new artists that don't normally do books. Well, this was what happened with Rich and myself, with Rich Nairn. I need to have a spare copy of my Legends of Grimmest Fire and Blood to hand. I used to have it, but I moved them. So with Rich's illustrations, he had never done a book before. Absolutely, he had done caricatures. That was his thing. That's how he earns most of his money. And I knew that if he just sort of made them less caricature, that they would be what I was looking for. And it worked out brilliantly. They were amazing, the illustrations that he did. And also for the Story Spark cards, it's the same with that. So, it's great that you can work with somebody that you just admire. Grim fairy tale trolls, before Warhammer standardised them, tend to be evil little fairies. Little wonder they used varying size in the 70s unless the author was specific. Yeah, well, this is the thing. If you've got a series that multiple authors are working on, unless you have, a guidebook, a Bible, I don't know what else you'd call it, that, that has all of that nailed down. But what you find is, and it's an interesting point when you create work, I remember building up my backstory of Edra, the world, what races are in it, and I was, what monetary system does it have? What is the map? What are the kingdoms and the queendoms? What are the principalities? Are they all shires? I've got northern realm of Edra, because I thought, well, actually, I don't want to restrict myself just to this map. Is that all of Edra? So I just put the northern realm of Edra, and then in the back of my head I went, so there's going to be a southern realm of Edra. But I've no idea what's in there. I don't know. And I do remember where the girlfriend at the time, she was saying, when are you actually just going to sit and write it? You've been world building now for ages. And I thought, that's a very good point, actually. When is enough for you to start writing? And I think you don't have to nail everything down. I think you need enough to write the book that you want to write, and maybe a little bit more, just so you're comfortable and it won't slow you down when you actually want to write the book. So that's when I went, yeah, actually, I feel like I've got enough. And then I wrote the Legends of Grimmest Fire and Blood. Then when I started writing the short stories that are all based in the world, that's when I expanded on the world. So I do need to go through all of that, and it's going to take time to actually say, right, okay, yeah, so we've got these races, we've got a magical system, because my magical system I've not totally nailed down. It's not complete. So I do need to get a bit more involved with what my world actually is. So hopefully I won't be making any mistakes. Because I've got my other book of Magic and Monkeys, which is close to the Legends of Grimm's Ironblood, because the flying monkeys, the iron monkeys, are actually in the Legends of Grimm's Ironblood. So I kept, it was easy to keep canon. It was easy to keep the lore pretty similar, pretty nailed down. And so, because of Magic and Monkeys is like a quest story, I already had my map laid out, so I could say, right, okay, they're going to go from this point to this point. They're going to travel through Dragonspine Mountain. So, it was fairly easy to kind of keep that canon. But obviously, the more books I do, the more unwieldy it could get. So that's why it's going to be good. I'm excited, though, because every book I write, I do want to explore a bit more of the world, because that keeps it fresh, it keeps it moving. Grim, oh yeah, we've already done that. So yeah, I've got some of Jonathan's books here as well, actually. Yeah, these are great. I love these. I do love all the illustrations as well. There's very few illustrations I'm not too keen on. Yeah, so he was very gothic, or she, because I haven't looked to see who actually. Full illustrations by Kev Crossley. Yeah. So everything is done by Kev Crossley, right? Well, yeah. Well, look at that. We've actually found the cover one. They're just amazing, aren't they? They really are just amazing. I don't want to spoil too much if you've not played the game. But I know Jonathan knows what happens. But yeah, I mean, look at this. Look at this creature. The hell? So, yeah, there's some fantastic illustrations out there. In fact, a recent Japanese author did a reverse Tolkien after his recent popular romantic comedy set in normal world series ended. He wrote a grim murder mystery with mild supernaturalism, with small appearances and references to the previous cast, and hence creates a universe in 2 books without having to write entire Magna Carta first. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that wasn't as I wanted it. What, the cover? Well, you've got it that way. But that is interesting. And again, you've got all the backstories to these sort of things when you're commissioning stuff. And but as a reader, as a fan, I don't know. I just went, yeah, this looks great. Look at that. Look at that. What, the cover wasn't as you wanted it? I think it's good. The only thing I would say maybe, I mean, I really like it, but obviously you could have focused, maybe to blow up that, you could have maybe just had the Cheshire Cat. Because Alice in Wonderland is so good. No, the Spinebacks. Oh, they were humanoid hedgehogs, right. Let's have a look. The humanoid hedgehogs. Oh, I see. So did you want them maybe... Oh, I'm not going to be able to find it again. Did you want them slightly more humanoid then? Because they looked... But it is interesting because you had a particular vision and, in your eyes, he didn't quite nail it. However, someone else looks at it and goes, yeah, that's great. Oh, I wanted the Spinebacks to look more the creature like Hans, my hedgehog from the Japan Storyteller. Yes, so it is just one. So it's more humanoid. Yeah. But yeah. And it is difficult. So I'm working on a project at the moment. I can't say too much about it, but we have been commissioning artists. And again, it's like, do you just show them what you want from other artists, or other reference points? Do you just go, yeah, this Hans my hedgehog, yeah, do that. It's tricky because you don't really want to, because you want them to put in their own creativity. Kev illustrated the first 3 Ace Game books. Well, he did a fantastic job. But yeah, actually, did he do Beowulf Beastslayer then? Did he do Beowulf Beastslayer? Oh no, Russ Nicholson did this one. There you go. Bit of rust. So yeah, it was interesting. I just made a snap decision with my illustrations to kill a thief because I thought, oh, they'll be good as hand carved, lino prints. Morning, Jam. How are you, sir? Might get a few moments visiting here while the girls watch painting. Yes, no worries. I have to be fairly tight on time myself because I do have to go off. I've got a 2.5 hour drive to a murder mystery. I do, yeah. So welcome, Jam. You're more than welcome. I do send photos. We're talking about illustrations in game books. I do send photos. So this is interesting. From Jonathan, when he's commissioning artists, he does send photo reference. I sent loads to Neil Goog for Ronin 47, which said most writers don't do, but he found it very helpful. Okay, that's good, yeah. Maybe you just need to have that conversation. Say, how do you work? Do you want me to send you reference point? In fact, actually, that's what I did with Rich. So for the Grimace Iron Blood book, because I knew he hadn't done a book before, he'd done loads of caricatures, but I just said, look, here's some mood boards, here's what I'm after, and I gave a brief description of what each character looked like. But with the monkeys, I just gave him the names and said, you just come up, you go for the monkeys. So the flying iron monkeys he just came up with. I wanted him to have that creative input. So you're right, I did actually say, yeah, I want Grimace to look like this, but I still was a bit loose with it. I still wanted him to bring something of his creativity to it. What I love about that reverse Tolkien approach is that the world does not move to the beat to one drum. During a heartwarming wedding in the corner of the country, it sounds like there'll be surely crime and tragedy happening. Yeah, that's a very good point. It's like a camera just zooming in on one bit, and you see that story, and then you go over here, and then you're right. It's like, oh, there's crime, and it's not so happy. Or you go over here, and there's a celebration because some wizard has qualified their wizard school, or and you just zoom about. Yeah, I do ask the artists what they would like to draw so I can play to their strengths. Oh, that's interesting. So, because that's really okay, because that's gone through my mind as well. Design briefs, yeah, Jam, you know all about design briefs as well. Because I have planned out my game book. I've not plotted it out in detail, so there's still room for things to happen. I like that. I like to plan stuff out, but if something creative takes off and I go down a different route, I'm not too bothered. But I am thinking about, what can I actually draw? What's going to be hard work for me? What's going to be my natural strengths? So I know humans and hands are not my natural strength. I'm more creatures, even though that's sort of humanoid, but and I know, so I'm more kind of that. I'm more buildings and landscapes. So if you look here, this was ink drawing. So I think I made a snap decision. I went, I know, I'm going to do it out of lino because I like that sort of block look, and you can get quite good detail about it. And then I sort of, because I think I bottled out and thought, am I a good enough drawer? Can I draw well enough? So I kind of bottled out, just going, I'm going to illustrate it. But this is some of my illustrations. So I'm I think I'm good with textures and woods. Let's have a look. Yeah, so I think I'm kind of pretty good with that. There's a sort of crazy monster tree, multiple-eyed monster tree. Which may feature in the game book. I haven't decided yet. So I'm quite good at that sort of stuff. So I sort of thought this looks quite wood blocky, sort of lino cuts. I did another one of these, didn't I? Don't know if you remember me doing these. What have we got here? Yeah, so, the paths and the trees, and you sort of start to develop your own style. And I don't mind mixing up the perspectives as well. So then I started waiting. Yeah, I'm going to do that as line cuts. But now I'm thinking maybe I should just do it as drawings. But no, I've promised lino cuts, so that's what you're going to get. Lehman's put it allows you to set multiple genres in a single setting. Just because your world is cybernetic, detective, and dragons doesn't mean every story has to be dark and cynical. Yeah, a romantic comedy in futuristic setting with a single shot fired or punch thrown would be just a breath of fresh air. Yeah, absolutely. That is a very good point. But contemporary Western writers, unfortunately, still seem to feel obliged to this mantra of sci-fi must have violence. Yeah, sci-fi. Yeah, I don't subscribe to that, because any genre can have violence. Any genre cannot have violence. You know, if you look at, was there violence in 2001? I don't think so. I can't remember. You know, there was psychological violence, you could say. So it doesn't have to be, you know. So, yeah. I try not to, you know, the thing is, though, when you're writing a genre, you do have to have familiarities to make it that genre. But then you put your own little twist on it. Sci-fi is sadly shackled by the commercial mantra. Yeah, violence. Yes, the apes bashing each other's brains out. Yes, that's what went through my mind, actually, Jonathan. I was trying. You probably noticed I slowed down talking. I was thinking, I'm playing the apes. They're banging on the ground. They're banging on the ground, and then I couldn't get past what they did after that. And I thought, do they start smashing each other around? Yes. However, I'm going to defend that, because that's not typical violence. That's not like laser fire against another human. That's not like what other violence? You know, that's not your typical sci-fi violence, is it? You know. So post George R. R. Martin, fancied by the chains of pessimism. Yeah, you can see why people get influenced, because if there's a big hit, everyone goes, "Oh, we want stories like that because the audience want that." But that's not necessarily, you know, I've read, have you read his short stories? Is it Dunk the Night? I can't remember what it was called now, but I think it's Dunk the Night. If you read those, they're not violent stories. They're just about him being a knight or a squire. Can't remember now. And it's just about him and his squire going around, and they're just getting into little kerfuffles. So, you know, even George R. R. Martin didn't write completely violent and sadistic stuff every time. And I think, you know, when you're a writer, George R. R. Martin had been writing for centuries, for decades before that really blew out. You know, he was a TV writer. He wrote, you know, novels. He'd written, I think, in different genres as well. You know, he was a writer. And so he may not have done something like Game of Thrones before and thought, you know what, I'm going to set it. It's based on War of the Roses. It's English history. It's brutal back then. It was, you know, it was brutal. There were unjust laws. There were, you know. So he's basically just delved into history and gone, right, oh, wow, that world's very, very brutal. Right, I'm going to reflect that. So, you know, but he may not have done that before. So I think as a writer's journey, it felt like probably a natural thing. And I'm not sure he was really copying anyone else at the time in fantasy. But then obviously, because that's what people know him for now, you know, that's like the peak above the water. Whereas his writing journey, maybe he didn't write such violent stuff previously. But you're right. Then there's a wave of all of that. It's the same with Harry Potter. Anything that becomes really popular. So, yes, I will be doing lino cuts. So at the moment, the ones that I showed you were just test ones. They're not quite good enough. I mean, that's pretty good, but I want to do it better. So, you know, and this one's okay, but, you know, I want to improve. So I'm going to be looking at loads of fighting fantasy, loads of illustrations. We've also got one of Jam's here. No, that's not one of Jam's. This is actually one of Troy's. Yeah, so these, again, these look like they're pencil rather than ink, but that's fine. But they've still got that classic black and white feel to it. This is one of Jam's. Let's have a look at Jam's illustrations. Yes, you've got nice filler illustrations there as well. I don't know how much control you had over this because it's a Savage Realms one. But again, yeah, that's definitely pencil. And that's an interesting choice to do it pencil rather than ink. Also, remember we did these League of Thieves. So the illustrations, yeah, they're good. They're shaded, so they're not totally black and white illustrations. They've got the shade in there, which do still work. These still work for me. They're not quite as punchy as just sort of black and white, but you know, there's sort of lots of shades of grey, so they still work. So that's an interesting choice that a recent publisher, who I think they're now on their 4th one, this is Osborne, decided to go for that similar style where, dare I say it, Scholastic, when they relaunched the Warlock of Fire Top Mountain, did they make a mistake? Did they make a mistake? I mean, these are not bad. These are not bad illustrations. You know, they're very good. They're very good. If you looked at these out of Fighting Fantasy, you'd be going, yeah, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. However, it wasn't what older people, the ones that remember the classic black and white illustrations. Now, again, these are shaded, but for me, I don't know. They don't quite work for me. I mean, they're good illustrations. I mean, look at that. Look at that. But they don't quite right. They're not bad. They're terrible. Oh, Jonathan, harsh words. I was trying to be a bit more restrained. Yeah. They did get a lot of backlash, I must admit. And I guess I mean, that looks a bit clip arty, doesn't it? That's the problem. There doesn't seem to be any character behind it. You know, that scroll, that's not very good. I'll give you that one, definitely. Where you look at the original scrolls, like we mentioned earlier, of these ones, there's just more character to it. I mean, if you look at that, that's very simple, but it's great. I have to be careful when it comes to expressing my opinion about those FF. Yes, no, I know. I know, absolutely. I think we all do, because ultimately we want people to succeed. We want people to have success. We want people to do a good job. However, you know, it's perfectly valid to have those reactions, I think. And I'm not blaming the artist one little bit. It's an editorial decision, you know. And also, as I said earlier, the choice of the black and white really works because of the medium that it's on. It's on, you know, off-white paper. So this sort of works where it's very simple line art. It just works. This is why these, maybe these are better quality. Yeah, okay. So these are better quality, but they are still shaded. So for me, these aren't quite working as well as a Fighting Fantasy one, because there's lots of grey in there. So it then just becomes a mass of grey. But the actual illustrations themselves, yes, these are high quality. So I'll give you that. Yeah, if we're going to be really harsh, but not harsh, if we're going to be a bit more honest, you know, compared to, let's just try to find something similar. Yeah, I guess, look, it's just more detailed. So it's been really interesting looking through illustrations. But then controversially, Jonathan, you come out with this book. Where's the illustrations in here, my friend? Where are they in here? Did they all fall out when you got them back from the printers? You do have some filler ones. I'll give you that. You have got the filler ones. I know it wasn't your decision. It was, why did they decide not to put illustrations in? Just because they couldn't afford it? Or I guess, which is a perfectly reasonable explanation. I prefer to write in Rousseau approach, in that we are all born fundamentally good. Yeah, honourable villains forced by tragedy down the wrong path. But would prefer to act in kindness with a few chances they get, are more real than dastardly McWickids who laugh. Yeah, exactly. That's a very good point, actually. Yeah, it's more the circumstances that people find themselves that then influences the choices they make, that then could be considered evil and, you know, villainous and hurt other people. That was the published choice, which was also criticised in some quarters. Yeah, and maybe that's unfair criticism, because you sort of go, no, but this is the decision we've made. You don't have to have illustrations in game books. That is the standard, and that is what is expected. But you don't have to have it. So I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. You know, it didn't detract too much from it. However, what I will say is part of the fun and part of the immersive experience, and everybody knows this, that is discovering a new illustration. And also I'm spoiling it for myself, but I like not to look at them before I play, because you know, if I'm walking down a dark, dingy sewer and I've already seen what's going to come ahead from the illustration, it's like, spoilers. So I really try not to look at them until I get to that entry, and then it's exciting to go, I've got an illustration. Right, sitting at a desk, an old man wearing purple robes and a conical hat. Could be considered quite comical as well. Do you know what I mean? It's like, oh, wow, right, okay, let's really take in what's going on here. All right, okay, there's a treasure chest there, there's a door there. Do you see what I mean? Because that's part of the exploration. So there we are. So I am going to spend a lot of time. Let's just have a look at one more. We've got Matt Baton's, I don't know how you pronounce his name, sorry, Baton's Escape from Sherwood. Really classic monster cover. I'll look at that, and we've actually turned to the illustration itself. Then, yeah, look at these. So I think these are pencil as well. However, they are actually quite contrasted, so they do stand out. Yeah, they do stand out. So again, I think the right decision. They just work. It just works. It just works. I guess Scholastic, they were trying to go for a younger audience, you know, to rejuvenate the actual game books. But there is still a relatively big market in the old fans. So I kind of get it. But then we were kids. You know, this is what, you know, we were kids, so we were drawn to those illustrations. So why can't kids today be drawn to those illustrations? Gosh, that looks straight out of Lovecraft. Yeah, what, this one? Was it, yeah, this one? Or was it this one? Yeah. So someone gave The Darkness Over Outcome a 2-star review because it wasn't illustrated. That is very harsh, Jonathan. That's very harsh, because A, that was out of your control, and B, but I guess, you know, as a punter, they don't know. They don't know what goes on behind the scenes. They probably were expecting it. So if they ordered it offline without looking through it, you know, without physically picking up a copy, they probably just assumed it was. And that's what I mean by when you write genre, and I'm considering game books as a separate genre, because they're not all fantasy based. The expectations are you have multiple different entries that are all jumbled up, and you go through the story and unpick the story, solving clues, you know, all of that. Some of them have combat, some of them won't, and they're illustrated. That is kind of like the basics that you kind of expect. That was what the genre came, like, sort of settled down to be. So I can kind of get it that you'd go, oh, well, I thought it was going to be illustrated. Great. It isn't. So it's a bit hard. It's like when you get a 1-star review because Amazon packaging was damaged when it arrived. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's harsh. It is very harsh. I think for me, I probably would have given it 4 out of 5, you know, and said, or even just go 3 out of 5 and say I was a little bit disappointed because it wasn't illustrated and I kind of was expecting it. However, that's on me because I didn't totally check it out. You know, I don't know. But people don't necessarily think like that. But yeah, maybe you'd knock a star off because they didn't have any illustrations. But I take it the publisher's still going to double down and not put any illustrations in. Hey! But anyway, you can't talk about that, Jonathan, can you? This is just childish and literally judging book by its cover, yeah. But people do, though. People do. I kind of get it, though, that they are... You know, the tradition is that you put illustrations, even the like Scholastic ones. You know, so if you are a big fan of game books, you probably were expecting it. But I wouldn't. I might knock 1 star off, maybe. Don't know. So there we are. So that is. I'm really looking forward to going through you know, going through the infamous the infamous monster we have in here. Well, there's that one. Yeah, they don't give off the right vibe. Maybe that's what it is that's turning me off about them. They don't give off the right vibe. Yeah, look. But I'm interested to look through them all, find out exactly why they work for me, what would work for you, you know, the actual line drawings. So what I'm going to be doing is, you know, working out, I'm going to do 20 illustrations and maybe 30. I'm hoping to do 30 for the hardback. So that is the plan. There we go. Anyway, I better go. You're right. Valdo's sci-fi spaceship paintings are cool. Yeah, the damage was out of your hands. It's wickedly unfair. Yeah, exactly. It is wickedly unfair. I guess the thing is, you don't really want to get into a war with somebody. It's like, okay, you've done that. You're right. Valdo's sci-fi spaceship paintings are cool. Yes. Game books aren't necessarily fantasy, but the illustrations, the vibe of this, I think I've hit upon it there. It's the vibe, the feeling that the illustrations give you. And maybe, yeah, I think this is it. I think we got to the nub of it. When you look back, because these are based in like a medieval fantasy type world that's magical, these feel like old illustrations. These feel era specific. I think I've hit that on the head. I think I've just worked it out, for me anyway. Let's have a look. Yeah, so both of these were the old classic style. Yeah. And look at that. That's very evocative. It gives a vibe. It feels of its era, of where it should be. But then when you look at the newer ones, yeah, they don't. They feel slightly modern, don't they? So therefore they feel out. Yes, that's what it is. It feels too modern for the era that they're in. Thank you very much, everybody. Picasso abstraction puts most adults to sleep, much less kids. The abstract FF reissues really dropped the ball. Yeah, that again, that's it. Picasso, fantastic. You know, some people like it, some people hate it, but you know, but it's all about context. I think we've cracked it. I'm glad we nailed it, because I couldn't work out exactly why it jars with me. It's because they're too modern. That's what it is. Anyway, so I'm really looking forward to illustrating my book, because I feel they're just as important, you know, the illustrations as the text and the story and the game mechanics. You know, there's 3 parts to a game book, as far as I can tell. Yeah, you've got the mechanics, you've got the story, and you've got the illustrations. There you go. Tell me I'm wrong. Fantastic. Well, it's been very enjoyable chatting about the illustrations. It's one of those things that I could chat for longer, actually, you know, and just go through more illustrations and, you know, but we've run out of time. So, yeah, over the next couple of months, I will definitely be looking through all my game books that I have. Then you've got the Ollie Mack game books. I couldn't quite reach it on my shelf. That's why it's still up there. You know, those illustrations, they're very black and white, very contrasty. I really like those. That is the type of style I'm going for. There is H.I. Geiger folio on the What's New section of the bookstore. Hail the Alien. Exactly. I've got a couple of Geiger art books as well, and they are amazing. And interestingly enough, he was doing that sort of stuff. You know, he didn't create that for Alien. The film company went to him and said, "We really like what you're doing. Can we, you know, can you work with us?" So again, finding the right vibe, the right feel for what you want. And because my world is, you know, traditionally seen as a oldie worldy world, those sort of illustrations lend credence to it. There we are. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. It's been most enjoyable. Hopefully you've enjoyed chatting about the illustrations in game books and just game books in general. If you are undecided, if you have not pledged yet, but I think everyone that's watching has pledged, To Kill a Thief, the late pledges are open. We have 52 backers, so we have had 2 late pledges, which is fantastic. The total is now 2,146, which is brilliant. I think it's 107% funded, which is just beyond my wildest dreams, which is fantastic. Because put it this way, it's my first game book. I'm an unknown author. So for it to reach this goal and for it actually to be into the real world with 50 backers, 52 backers is amazing. So that's 52 people that wanted to back me, which I just find incredible. And it's the start. It's the start, hopefully, of me producing a game book each year. Shall I be cheeky and try and do 2? No. When am I going to get the time? I'm going to get the time. So hopefully I will do more game books. I don't know if I can do 2 a year, but now I've said it, that's quite a good challenge. But if I get into a rhythm, we don't know. Who knows? Anyway, so hopefully we'll get a few more backers as well. And then what I will do is I will be putting it up as a paperback. So the hardback is never going to be done again as a hardback. So if you back to the hardback level, that is it. That is it. You are in on the ground floor. There'd be no more hardbacks of To Kill a Thief. And I'll do that continuously as hopefully we grow the Kickstarters each year. Anyway, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Lirin. Thank you, Jam. Thank you to not many people. I know that people were away today. They'd already told me they weren't going to make it. So thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. And if you were watching and you didn't comment, because sometimes that happens and I don't see it on the view account, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And if you haven't followed the channel, that'd be most grateful. Just click the follow button and the notification button, and you should be notified when I go live. Plus, I've got an Edra Tales YouTube channel, which you can go over there and subscribe. I put these live streams up there. I'd like to do more YouTube, but I just have got too many projects. And I got to remember that I don't really, YouTube isn't my main focus. It's a great way to communicate with people, and, live streams are a great way to chat with you guys. However, I want to create stuff. I want to create books. I want to create plays. I want to create illustrations, that kind of thing. So I must remember that that's my main focus. Anyway, may your thieving never be caught. Always. No, can't put always on that. It's just, may your thieving never be caught.